What is up, guys? Top tier Yu-Gi-Oh here, and today I've got an updated Burning Abyss deck profile for you guys. And so, it feels like a lot of people have forgotten about Burning Abyss, but I just wanted to remind you all that Beatrice is one of the best cards ever printed, Burning Abyss is one of the best archetypes ever, this is still one of the best rogue decks, and personally, I've been having a lot of fun with it, and so I'm hoping that you guys will too. And so this is just going to be a pure Burning Abyss list, but if you want to see something a little more spicy, I have been working on a Dogmatika Burning Abyss deck that I've been testing. It kind of utilizes Dogmatika Punishment very well, and it's similar to sort of a trap BA list because you can use Blackjack to get the Punishment. Punishment can get you to your Dogmatika engine, or can dump Dante, add back BAs. A lot of really cool synergies, and so if that sounds interesting to you, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click that notification bell because you want to be notified when I do upload that spice. But if you want to see that video a little bit faster, maybe when this video gets to about 100 likes, I'll upload it. So if you want to see that, be sure to like this video. But let's go ahead and get into this list. This is just going to be a pure list once again. And I'm not going to overhype it. I'm not going to talk it up to be some type of meta breaker because it's not. But again, for what it is, it's pretty good and a lot of fun. So let's get into it. So starting with the Burning Abyss engine cards, we have 3 copies of Scarm, 2 copies of Libic, 1 copy of Graph, and 1 copy of Seer. Pretty much these guys, get your Burning Abyss engine, get your Burning Abyss cards wherever you want them to be, add them to your hand, summons them from hand to field, grave to field, deck to field. Pretty much gets everything where you want it to be and allows you to make all of your plays. I'd say this is all pretty much standard minus the 2 copies of Libic. I personally like 2 because it helps deal with multiples, but it also helps you set up your Trisbana lock a little bit easier. And so we'll get more into that Trisbana lock a little bit later if there's time, but I have done older videos on it, so I'll link that in the description or in the comment section if you want to see that. But it's a pretty cool combo. But moving on to the Burning Abyss utility cards, for that we have 3 copies of Farfa, 2 copies of Alec, 1 Barbar, 1 Cowcab, and 1 Rubik. And so all of these cards are pretty much extenders in your hand, but they're amazing to send to the graveyard with Beatrice, minus Rubik, which doesn't have a graveyard effect, but the others are good to send to the graveyard with Beatrice. And Farfa is obviously amazing for disrupting combos, just banishing stuff, but Alec is also really good right now, because there are a lot of effects in the metagame that it can kind of deal with, especially ignition effects, and then on-summon trigger effects. And so just thinking about Rise of the Duelist, like in the Dogmatika engine, it's really useful because a lot of times your opponent will activate Ecclesia's in-hand effect at Chainlink 1, then you can chain Beatrice at Chainlink 2, dumping Alec, and then in a separate chain, Ecclesia's on-field effect will activate at Chainlink 1, Alec Chainlink 2 can negate that Ecclesia. So that can be very huge in that matchup, pretty much stopping their engine. Another thing you could do is, you could do the exact same thing against Fleur de Lis, so that can be really powerful. So Alec's insane. Barbar is obviously good, especially when we get back into in-person games. Being able to do damage in the main phase is very important. Cowcab, I think, is really good against Eldritch right now, because a lot of the Eldritch traps, their Golden Land traps, their Elixir cards, they're going to set things directly from the deck onto the field, so you know exactly where they are. And so then with Cowcab, you can bounce back pretty much whatever's going to stop them from playing on your turn. And so if you know they set Scarlet Conquistador, you could bounce one of them and then not have to deal with it. Or maybe they already have a Golden Lord on board and they set a Conquistador for the deck. Or they just set an Unknown, but just one. And they have a Golden Lord. You can just bounce it back to their hand with a Cowcab, and now they have no defense for you, and you can maybe OTK them. And so playing against Eldritch, Cowcab is actually really, really strong. It's probably the only good thing in that matchup because that's a very tough matchup. Probably the hardest matchup for this deck is Eldritch. But Cowcab does help. And then Rubik is a tuner. But that's pretty much it for the Burning Abyss utility cards. After that, we just have a few more parts of the Burning Abyss engine, some support guys and gals, such as 2 copies of Tour Guide, which I definitely need rarity upgrades for. Having commons is sad. 3 copies of Fiendish Rhino Warrior, also a really insane card that protects your Burning Abyss monsters from card effects, but also sends any of them from deck to the graveyard, so very useful. These are pretty obvious though. Now for the hand traps, we have 3 copies of Ash Blossom, 3 copies of Ghost Ogre. Ghost Ogre I think is important right now for stopping the Numeron engine, because this deck, as you saw, is a lot of Burning Abyss monsters, obviously, and we can't do anything against S0 because we special summon them from our hands, and against S0 we won't be able to activate those hand effects, meaning we won't be able to get anything purposeful on the board, and it just gets very tough to play under S0, and so stopping it with the Ghost Ogre can be huge. It's also good against other combo decks. Just dealing with stuff on board, removing monsters can be very useful. Then we have 2 copies of Ghost Mourner, 2 copies of Veiler, and then 2 copies of Imperm. I do think I want to bump Imperm up to 3 though. I just don't have a 3rd copy, but I think Imperm is one of the best. I think it is the best hand trap right now because it can be used defensively. It helps you break boards as well, and just being able to serve multiple roles like that is critical, I think, in modern Yu-Gi-Oh. So I do think Imperm should be at 3. And Veiler is in here because we are also testing out Access Code, Selene, and Needle Fiber, because I think that's just such a convenient way to OTK, very easy to make in this deck, especially with Rubik, and so I'm testing out 2 copies of Veiler to make that a little bit more feasible. So that's pretty much it for the hand traps though. You're not going to see any copies of Nibiru because, one, it's not very good right now. Like against Numerons, it's not good. Against Dogmatika, not good. Against a lot of decks, just not as good really. Then their decks, it is good against like Dragon Link, Rock, Warrior, like Noble Knights. They can all play through it or summon negates before their 5th summon. So it's not good against the combo decks, not good against the not combo decks. Just no point right now. And also, if Nibiru's on the field, we can't summon BAs, and so it can kind of destroy the whole engine too. Not a big fan of Nibiru in this deck right now, but still a solid card maybe. Who knows? But that's it for the monsters. For the spell cards, we have 2 copies of Pot of Desires, 2 copies of Called by the Grave, 2 copies of Cosmic Cyclone, and then 1 copy of Instant Fusion. Desires is really good in this deck because there's nothing you really care about not banishing, so it's just free 2 cards. Called by the Grave is interesting because I think that this deck is relatively insulated against hand traps. Like Ash doesn't do anything unless it's against a Graph maybe. Ogre doesn't do anything, Veiler doesn't do anything. This can't negate Imperm or Gamma. So I'm thinking about switching this out for Forbidden Droplets or maybe triple Tactical Talents. Leaning a little bit more towards Droplets because it can be used offensively and defensively. Like I can go first, set drop, and then use it against my opponent, send some BAs from hand to graveyard, trigger those effects. So there's a little bit of synergy as well that I think could be interesting. And also same going second. Drop, discard Farfa, negate 1 monster, banish another, and now you've dealt with 2 things. So I think that drop's going to be really good for this deck. But let me know if you think triple Tactical Talents would be better because drawing cards is also good. And then also maybe stealing an opponent's monster, looking at their hand, taking something out. All of those effects are good. And so let me know what you guys think about, droplets versus tactical talents, or maybe still Called by the Grave. What do you think would be best here? I'm leaning more toward drop though. Cosmic Cyclone just really good versus a lot of matchups. Good against Dragon Link if you go first. Good against Eldritch first or second. Good against Rogue. Solid against Ignoble Knights. Great card right now. And then Instant Fusion for summoning Winda. But that's pretty much it for the spell cards. And now there are 2 more cards in the main deck that I forgot to mention earlier. And these are the last 2 cards that I added to the deck. It is Sea Archiver and Gizmek. Both of these are really powerful because they're essentially free summons. And so if you can get to a Cherubini without having to use Graph or Seer, then you can use Cherubini to dump this. And then this is just a free summon. And then Gizmek is, I think, a great card to mill off of your Dantes or to maybe send off your Beatrice mid to late game. And it really just helps you grind, keep going, keep recurring those resources. Because sometimes just having this 2400 beater over and over can win you a game. And so I definitely like Gizmek a lot. And Sea Archiver for sure. But that's pretty much it for the main deck. Now we're just going to move on to the side deck. So for that we have 1 copy of Beatrice, 2 copies of Dante, 1 Cherubini, Virgil, and other Dante for the Burning Abyss cards. These are all pretty powerful. Something I will like to note is that if your opponent is playing Dogmatika and they use Maximus, you can dump Dante to the grave and add back, any of these minus Beatrice, any of your BA cards. It can be a great card to send off of Maximus. You will not get the effects of any of the other cards because they don't trigger. TLDR, they don't trigger. I checked, but but yeah, that's unfortunate. But this is the Burning Abyss engine. You could maybe cut a Virgil. It comes up every now and then, I think, but I could definitely see myself cutting this for something else. Maybe the Red Eyes Fusion when that comes out in the 10s later this month. But we'll see about that. But this is pretty much it for the BA engine. Pretty obvious. Next, we have 1 copy of Winda. as I mentioned before, very easy to summon off of the instant fusion, which you can summon off of Anaconda, or if you just draw the instant fusion. So that's pretty good, and you can protect it with Cherubini, because Cherubini has the effect that cards that it points to cannot be destroyed by card effects, and so that makes it really difficult for opponents to deal with. So like no Lightning Storm, it's 2200, so they probably don't beat over it with normal summons. This is a tough board for a lot of decks to deal with, especially if you can back it up with a Beatrice too. So that's a pretty good board. Next we have Apollousa, which is probably the most important link monster in this deck outside of Cherubini, because I'd say most hands I try to end on Beatrice Apollousa, which is very, very powerful, because you're getting multiple monster negates, do whatever you want with the Beatrice. This can be anything, and so I definitely like this board a lot. So Apollousa is very important, very easy to make. Next we have Topologic Trisbana for the Trisbana lock, IP and Unicorn for that play, then Anaconda, Needle Fiber, Selene, and Access Code Talker. Now, I will say that about the Selene Access Code thing, one thing that's kind of sucky about this deck is we don't play that many spells. We only have 7 spells pretty much. So it's very difficult to get 3 in the graveyard. So you're depending on the opponent, but something else you can also do is use Beatrice to send some. So maybe your opponent uses one, you Dante mill another one, Beatrice in the third, and then you've already searched the tour guide most likely, so on your next turn you just summon tour guide, get to Rubik, go into Needle Fiber, summon something like the Veiler, Selene, Access Code, game. So that's something that comes up every now and then. Been testing it, it's been okay, but I still might switch it out for a Boral Sword. So if you don't want to invest in Needle Fiber because you think it could ban, or because Access Code is still like 70, you would be perfectly fine just playing a Boral Sword and then 2 other cards that you think would be good. So that's definitely something you don't need in this deck. You don't need this play, but I've just been testing it and kind of enjoying it. So yeah. But alright guys, that's pretty much it for this Burning Abyss deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed it, and if you did, again, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, because I really would appreciate it. If you do want to see that controlled Dogmatika Burning Abyss list, again, like this video, because when it gets to 100 likes, I'll upload that. And then, as always, if you watched till the end of the video, I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. Hope you have a great day.